Hi, this is Doug Cole, and thanks for joining us for another premium model review. We'd like to show you how to turn this into this. At Right On Replicas, we take pride in providing you with the best scale model reviews on the planet. And remember, you can order a printable copy of any review at the ROR website, but if you want to see every review, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We know that there are a lot of you Ford Fusion owners out there that would like a scale model of your car. And we can provide that for you in a number of ways, but we're going to stick to what we call the slammer model here and show you how to make a replica of your car. So follow along as we show you how to convert the Revell Joey Logano number 22 Shell Penzoil Ford Fusion into a four-door family sedan. You'll need to use what we call a donor kit. In this case, I used the Joey Logano Shell Penzoil Ford Fusion from Revell, model kit number 85-1473, but you can also use Brad Keselowski's version 85-1472. In part 1 of the series, we showed you how to take the Joey Logano car, use some scribing techniques, and make windows, wheels, and use the stickers for a basic car. If you haven't seen that, you should go back now and review it. Using part 1's version as a base, we can show you how to add detail to make it look much more like your car, even personalizing it with dents and dings. We'll be starting with the same frame that we constructed in part 1. We'll then follow all the steps outlined in part 1 up to the point where the door pillars are removed. Depending on the model year and trim level, your Fusion might be a little different than this one, but you'll be able to take these techniques and go ahead and finish yours the way yours looks according to your reference photos. Now on each side of the car at the bottom of the windows is a molded in strip, and it's not symmetrical because the position of the door pillars was staggered on the NASCAR model. So you scrape those down, sand them smooth, or file them off from the front of the to the rear of the second door opening, or you can just sand them off. Now cut a piece of plastic strip, some evergreen 20 by 60 thousandths, and glue it in to replace the trim that you filed off. Then you file off the strip at the rear to taper it to the level of the molded trim running up the back quarter window. Just glue it in place with some adhesive so that it stays along the edge there. Now notch it at the joint where the two doors come together with your hobby knife. Now cut and glue a piece of half round strip, some evergreen 40 thousandths, across the bottom of the door opening. Now use your photos of the real Fusion as a reference and draw some angles on a piece of 1/16 inch sheet stock like that on your car. Then use your hobby knife or a pair of scissors to cut the pieces out, one a little larger than necessary, one for each side. Sand the edges smooth and then bisect the piece from top to bottom with a scribed line using a straight edge. Then bend the piece a little outwards to give it some arc from top to bottom, and test fit it to make sure that you've got enough material there, and then continue to test fit till it fits just right in the window frame. Now you line up the scribed line to the notch in the door trim between the two doors. Then glue it into place. Here the post is shown glued into place, aligned with the notch in the door trim between the doors. Now we're going to lengthen the rear fascia by cutting a piece of that sheet stock about 3/8 of an inch wide, the length of the rear roll pan. Then just glue it into place, leaving about 100 thousandths to extend the length of the roll, the fascia there, closer to the ground. Now flip the body upside down and cut a notch, that's the black circle there, onto the passenger side at the rear, and round it off with a small rat tail file or some sandpaper. This is to accept the tailpipe later on. Then put some putty along the area between the body and the additional skirting you just added, and smooth it out to create a shallow transition to the body. Take another look at your reference photos to make sure you haven't missed any trim or features that are on your real car, and make sure you get those modified, like this front end area that was done in phase 1 and needs to be painted semi-gloss black later on. After you've finished with all the trim to your liking, give the body an overall sanding, and then mount it on top of a paint can or a clothes hanger and spray it with some primer. The panel lines are accentuated here so that you could see them. And you can also make any repairs at this time with the body putty. After it is dried, you sand down the repairs and you give the whole thing another light sanding. Then rinse it off in some lukewarm water with dish detergent. Rinse it off clean and let it air dry. This is also the time where you can personalize your model by duplicating things like parking lot dings and the like. Now sand the model off again overall and give it another light primer so that you can be ready for color coats. My Fusion had a sunroof, so I applied these thin strips of plastic to the underside of the sunroof opening to retain it there in place, and then put the blank filler on top. There's some triangular window trim at the front of the front window that needs to be taped off and painted semi-gloss black. The window posts also need to be painted semi-gloss black, but you can do that easily with a small brush. Locate these stickers from the kit supplied sheet and use the instructions to see where they're applied. On my Fusion, the area indicated by the white arrow here is flat black, so I taped it off and painted it that way. This area is also flat black, so I taped it off and painted it with a brush. I found some red reflective stickers, so I cut them out the approximate shape of the reflectors on my car. I just pressed them into place on each side just like the regular stickers. The trim that we added to the body below the windows is chrome plated on the real car. You can find some self-adhesive metal foil at most hobby stores to do this, and you can also just use some plain old aluminum foil, but you have to glue it into place. A third method for this, especially if it's not a silver car, is just to use a silver Sharpie to highlight the trim. Now apply the foil in strips to the trim and press it down so that it sticks, or glue the plain stuff right onto the trim rails. Then you use a new hobby blade to cut off the excess trim by running it along the joint between the body and the trim piece. Then burnish it to a high shine. Here's where the foil was placed along the trim at the bottom of the window. It doesn't show up so well on a silver car, but the foil really stands out on the other colors. At this point you can screw the body to the chassis just like in the first version, part 1, and you can also start to place the windows into their openings using some tape. One of the prominent features on these cars is the roof-mounted antenna that you can make by shaping a piece of plastic and a piece of wire. Use a discarded exhaust pipe to make the base, and then just file it to shape in somewhat of a triangle. Then use the tip of your hobby knife or small drill like in the pin vise. Put a small hole near the rear of the base. Use a small piece of wire or a straight pin that's been cut to length and glue it into the hole with a backward rake. Then attach it to the top of the vehicle. One additional touch to make your car look more realistic is some mirrors. I borrowed these from a donor kit, but you might have a spare parts box with some. It's optional, but it really makes it look much more nice. Just paint them to match your car's body color and glue them to the doors in the appropriate location. Cut off a piece of plastic sprue tree about an 1/8 inch in diameter and about an inch long. Use your hobby knife to remount the end of the pipe. Then you paint the pipe silver and the end of it black. Now glue the pipe to the frame, making sure that it sticks out of the relief area in the rear fascia. There's one final set of details that are needed to make your model look real. Door handles and the gas filler door. There's a couple options here. You can carefully scribe those features into the body, or you can print out some decals that emulate the features, just like you did the wheels. I chose to do the latter, and if you have a simple photo program, a printer, and some decal paper appropriate for your printer, you can simply find the shapes you need in the program like Windows Paint, GIMP, or Photoshop. They'll all work. Print them out to size on some plain paper, then adjust the sizes to get what looks right. Then you print them on decal paper. Use some clear spray or decal fixative to seal them after they've dried. Cut them out close to the shapes and apply them to the body. Overall, it's not perfectly proportioned, and as I mentioned, there's some trade-offs. But if you're looking for a model of a factory stock Ford Fusion, this should fill the bill depending on your skill level and you can customize it to personalize it as well. I think this is a pretty good representation of my Ford Fusion, and you could even use this to springboard off of to add clear acetate windows and a donor interior from something like, say, a 2014 Mustang kit to make it even more realistic. I hope you've enjoyed this step-by-step review and will use it to make your own Ford Fusion from a NASCAR kit. We hope you've enjoyed this step-by-step review, and don't forget you can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com, Right On Replicas, or our website at www.rightonreplicas.com. Thanks again.